There's a generation rising. They talk differently. They walk differently. They understand who they are and who they serve. They carry the glory of God because they serve the one true King, Jesus Christ. These are those who have been equipped with power and authority to shock the darkness. Wherever they go, the light of God goes with them. They are atmosphere shifters.
Hello everyone, I'm excited to be with you again. And it's deep on my heart that God wants to give you a vision and He wants to give you a plan. And in the last video, we talked about how your pain reveals your calling. We talked about how Nehemiah, when he talked to God, he said, you have a covenant with me, so let's make this happen. Let's rebuild the walls. God, give me the strength, give me the plan. And we talked about the fact that it's a 6-month period from chapter 1 to 2. So here's the deal. Prayer takes time. Planning takes time. And your calling takes time. Recently, I was reading the book of Esther. And before I had read the book of Esther, I thought to myself, well, this is probably maybe a year, maybe even just 2 weeks, that the lifespan or the time span of Esther is about 2 weeks. But when I started studying it out, it's 10 years, which means that prayer takes time and your calling takes time. We can't just have this mentality that, okay, let's just throw my calling into a microwave and within 3 minutes it's ready and you're ready to eat. That's not the way it is. You can't just have microwave faith. It's going to be more like an oven where you wait for 5, 6. You're preparing that turkey. You can smell that turkey. You're like, man, I want to take out that turkey ahead of time. But if you take out the turkey ahead of time, you're going to have some bad turkey. So you can't jump into your calling ahead of time. You have to have time in the presence of God, and you have to have a plan. And so from chapter 1 to chapter 2 is a 6-month period of him crying out to God for a plan and saying, I have a covenant with you, therefore you take care of me and you take care of my people. So through praying for 6 months, he believes that he finally has a plan. And what I want to start out with you is Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 11. It says, O Lord, please hear my prayer. Listen to the prayers of those who delight in honoring you. Please grant me success today by making the king favorable to me. Put it into his heart to be kind to me. In those days, I was the king's cupbearer. Now, there's a lot to unpack in that one verse because it says that I was the king's cupbearer. Now, the cupbearer is somebody who checks the drinks, makes sure that the drinks aren't poisoned before the king drinks his wine or water or whatever it is. Nehemiah was the person who checked the drink before the king had his beverage. Now, you don't put somebody in that position if you don't trust them, which means that Nehemiah was an extremely trusted individual. And really, when I think about the story of Nehemiah, I think it very much like the story of Joseph, how Joseph was a slave, but then he was in Potiphar's house, and he was faithful in Potiphar's house. And then he was thrown into prison, and then from prison, he was faithful in prison. And finally, when the time came, years and years and years and years later, calling takes time, he was finally promoted to become the second most influential person in the kingdom, next to the Pharaoh. And here in Nehemiah, I believe you have a similar situation. Nehemiah, he started as a slave. And because he was faithful in little, God gave him much. God put him in a great place of authority. And we don't have Nehemiah's backstory, but we have this principle that when you are faithful in little, God will give you much. So, my friend, I want to encourage you, be faithful in little, and God will give you much. Honestly, I can remember the first gay parade that we ever went to. And I worshiped outside for 3 days, 6 hours a day. And we only saw 10 salvations. It was in Miami. It was such debauchery and so messed up, I wanted to throw up. My heart was like, I don't want to be here. I do not want to be here. God, why did you send me here? I love these people, but I do not want to be here. I remember calling my wife and saying, babe, I don't want to be in this place. And she said, no, Philip, God's told you to be there. My wife encouraged me. And we saw 10 salvations. But I remember just feeling like a complete failure. I was basically by myself. There was one more person. His name's Ken. He was with me. It was just me and him, just plowing the ground. But now you look at life today, and we started with 10 people, but we just got back from Washington, D.C., and we saw 973 people give their lives to the Lord. So if you're faithful in little, God will give you much. And honestly, people thought I was a freak. They were like, Philip, why are you going there? Do you really think you're going to make an impact? I mean, it's awesome what you're doing, but I mean, you go, because I'm definitely not going. That was the reaction that I got the majority of the time. But now time has passed and we've been faithful in little, and God is beginning to give us much. And I believe that this is the story of Nehemiah, that through his faithfulness, he is now the king's cupbearer, which means he's very trusted and he's always close to the king. It was through cupbearers in those days. They would talk to the cupbearer and they say, hey, can you put poison in his drink before he checks it? Can you make sure? He would have had access to do all of that. So he's a very, very trusted individual. He's also in the king's palace on a regular basis, eating the king's food, very trusted. And here it says, please grant me success today by making the king favorable to me. Put it in his heart to be kind to me. Now, since he's been with the king a lot, he's also seen people's heads chopped off. He's seen people punished right there in front of his eyes for different reasons. And now he is about to walk up to the king and say, you know what? It's awesome in the palace. I love you. But my heart is in pain for my people. I need to go rebuild the walls. Now, the reaction of the king could easily have been off with his head. So Nehemiah is risking his life for the call. You see, the pain on the inside was so deep that he was ready to risk his life because the pain had revealed his calling. And It's in that scenario that we open up to chapter 2. And I'm going to read it. Early the following spring, that's the 6-month period, in the month of Nisan, during the 20th year of King Artaxerxes' reign, I was serving the king his wine. I had never before been sad in his presence. Now, that is a powerful point, because what it shows me is that this guy, he did his job with excellence. Every single day, he's smiling. He's never been sad in the king's presence. Did he have off days? Of course he had off days. He was exiled into a country that was not his own. Possibly his mother, his father were murdered in front of his eyes. All of this is very, very possible. He had to learn a language that was not his own. Yet he made a decision that I'm going to smile. Because smiling is what you're supposed to do. Just take a moment. Just smile. Just take a moment and smile. And when you go to work, you don't do it like, someone's forcing me to do this. Oh, I can't stand this. I just want to go home. No, you go to work with a heart of excellence, just like Nehemiah. It says that the king had never seen Nehemiah sad in his presence. What if that was the case for believers? It'd be so powerful. Look at this. So the king asked me, why are you looking so sad? You don't look sick to me. You must be deeply troubled. Then I was terrified because he knows he's about to risk his life. But I replied, long live the king. How can I not be sad? For the city where my ancestors are buried is in ruins. The gates have been destroyed by fire. The king asked, well, how can I help you? I love this part. You see, the fasting, the praying, the mourning, the spending time in God's presence had released favor. It had released boldness. It had released a plan. I want to say that again. Boldness, favor. We can add confidence to that, and a plan. You better have a plan. Somebody's going to walk up to you and they're going to say, wow, your vision's amazing. How can I help you? What can I give to you? And it's not in that moment where you go, oh, well, I think maybe I need this and this and this, or maybe I'll get back to you in a month. No, you got to have your pitch deck ready. You got to have your business plan ready. You got to be ready to say, I need this, 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 and this. And this is my plan to have all of this come to pass. Because what you read in the following verses is Nehemiah had a plan. He was 100% prepared for that question. Now, my question to you is, are you? Are you 100% prepared when somebody walks up to you and they say, well, how can I help you? In other words, what do you need? Where's your plan? Are you going to be ready? See, we have to spend time in the presence of God so that we will be ready. But look at this. With a prayer to the God of heaven, I replied. Again, he knows that he's risking his life here. If it please the king, and if you are pleased with me, your servant, send me to Judah to rebuild the city where my ancestors are buried. The king, with the queen sitting beside him, asked, how long will you be gone? So he knew how long he would be gone. When will you return? After I told him how long I would be gone, the king agreed to my request. I also said to the king, if it please the king, let me have letters addressed to the governors of the province west of the Euphrates River, instructing them to let me travel safely through their territories on my way to Judah. That means I need these documents so that I'm protected when I cross the border. Can you give me these documents? Can you provide protection for me? He thought everything through. And please give me a letter addressed to Asaph, the manager of the king's forest, instructing him to give me timber. Now, you don't just say, give me timber. You have to know how much timber you need, which means that Nehemiah had studied how big the gates were, how much timber he would need to rebuild every single gate, to rebuild the walls. He wasn't just saying, oh, I think I need this much. No, he had a concrete plan because he had been fasting and praying and crying out to God, and God gave him a perfect blueprint of how to move forward. And that's what I'm praying for you. And that's what I'm praying for me, that we would have this perfect blueprint, how to move forward. Many times you have to move forward in faith. Nehemiah, he moved forward in faith. Sometimes you have to move forward without any finances, but you still have to know how much you're going to spend for the trip. Jesus said that when you build a tower, you count the cost. So it's important. Every single trip that we have, Burning Man, for instance, it's the next one. We know that Burning Man is going to cost around $155,000. That's buying RVs, that's all the food, that's blessing evangelists, that's the tickets there, back, that's the survival equipment, that's the stuff that we're going to give away to people. I mean, we're going to be in the midst, in the very center of Sodom and Gomorrah, but I am just so excited. But there's a budget, there's a plan. Because someone's going to walk up to me and say, how can I help you? And I have to have a plan that we follow through. Because revival is not just sporadic. There is planning in revival. Even just me sitting here with you right now, talking to you through this camera, that's planned. We made a plan to come here to release a blessing on your life. So nothing is sporadic. God is a very organized God, and there is a plan. And so you have to follow that plan. By the way, if you want to be a part of that plan, you can go to philiprenner.com and you can become a partner with us, a monthly partner with us. Maybe you want to cover Burning Man. Maybe you want to say, oh, I want to cover Detroit, or I want to cover Chicago. Those are the next cities we're going to. Then you can say, I want to be a part of that. And you can give a one-time gift, or you can become a monthly partner, because every month we're going somewhere. We're shocking the darkness. We're raising leaders. We're building this team, this army that will go forth and will boldly preach the gospel. And the Lord has given me a plan that I am following. But continue with me right here. It says, I will need it. So he's going to need the timber. I will need it to make beams for the gates of the temple fortresses and the city walls, and for the house for myself, which this is amazing. So within the plan, it's not just all about the ministry. He says, and for my house too, which means when you're a minister, God takes care of your house. God takes care of your needs. The needs of the ministry won't just be met. Your needs will be met as well. God will bless you. God will strengthen you. Because when you take care of God's house, God takes care of yours. And so Nehemiah says, yeah, I need all that timber. I need these documents, and I need timber for my house too. So within the vision that God has given you is your provision. Take it. Take it on the inside. Within the vision that God has given you is your provision. So if you've stepped out in faith in the vision that God has given you, your provision is in that faith. Your provision, your house is there. Just receive your house right now in the name of Jesus. Look at this. And it says, and the king granted these requests because the gracious hand of God was on me. It's not because you're talented. It's not because you have, you're charismatic. It's not because of your gifts. It's because the gracious hand of God is upon you. And that's the only one who gets credit. It's the gracious hand of God. Verse 9, when I came to the governors of the province west of the Euphrates River, I delivered the letters to them. The king, I should add, had sent along army officers and horsemen to protect me. So Nehemiah, he got more than he asked for. He got a whole army to protect him as he went across the border. So God will always do above and beyond what you can ask or imagine. And that's what I'm praying for you. Above and beyond. It's God's will. That means it's God's bill. And he goes above and beyond. Within the vision is your provision. But you step out in faith and you see God move. Before we went to Philadelphia and Kensington, which was amazing, we preached to drug cartel in Kensington. We preached to drug addicts in Kensington, policemen in Kensington. It was absolutely amazing. But we went there by faith. There was no money in the bank account. But I said, Lord, you've given me an assignment. We're going by faith and we're doing this. And we saw God provide, not only through salvations and miracles, but by the end of the trip, because of my partners, we were in overflow. And I'm just so grateful to all of you who pray and give. If you want to be a part of this, come join the army. It's going to be amazing what God is going to do. Together, we're going to shock the darkness. That's you. It's not just me. Together, we shock the darkness. And we're going to do it in Burning Man, Chicago, Detroit. God's going to just move in a mighty way. And we're going to see revival. And we will do it together. But I want to pray for you. Father, I thank you for everyone that is watching right now. I thank you that there are Nehemiahs out there. There are builders out there. There are organizers, businessmen. They're watching right now. And Father, I thank you that the dream that you have given them, it's big. And I want to encourage you to dream bigger. God's been telling me, Philip, dream bigger. Because we serve a God that has no limits, so we need to dream bigger. And it's from that place that God puts faith in your heart, and you can do the impossible. So just like Nehemiah prayed, fasted, cried out to God, he received a plan. He received favor. He received confidence and boldness. I speak those things over you. I speak favor over you. The doors are going to open for you that would never open for anybody else, but because you've been in the presence, they open for you. Confidence. You're going to speak like a king. Boldness. When the righteous are as bold as a lion, the city is blessed. And number 4, a plan, a blueprint of how to start from the beginning to the very end. And it's going to be organized, and somebody's going to come up to you and say, how can I help you? God's moving, and the impossible is possible. I love you guys. I bless you. And before I go, I just want to tell you that I have a book called Worship Without Limits, because I believe that worship is without limits. We've taken worship to the craziest atmospheres in this nation. And we've seen worship completely shift the atmosphere. And I have a fasted life, which is a constant connection with God. It's about constantly catching the wind and following his voice, where to go, what to do, how to speak. And then finally, I have a worship school called Worship Without Limits. If you're a pastor, if you're a worship leader, and you want to go deeper into the things of God, then just go to worshipwithoutlimits.com and be a part. Just follow the link right here, and God is going to move in your life. I love you. I bless you. The description to follow our ministry and to help us shock the darkness is right here in the description. But I'm praying for you. I bless you. And I'll see you soon.